Hey guys, before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our level 3 courses. When I tried to sit down and do some big swanky radio advert and it's just not us. So I'm just going to chat about it for a minute. So our level 3 training is the same price as some other courses out there where you just get 5 days and you are out the door, do your coursework on your own. Our course is for the same price is 10 days of training. So for our May cohort, that's 5 days. And then we have a bit of a month off to just let that settle. We come back for a weekend, maybe do a bit of camping. Then we have a bit more time off and then we come back for another weekend. With the September group, we do 5 Mondays starting in September. Then we have a bit of a break. Then we come back in the new year and do another 5. So we're really focusing on building community as we go. We didn't really want to do that conveyor belt thing. We could be doing, a level 3 course every school holiday, banging them out, off you go. But we don't want to do that. We do Zoom calls throughout the year. We do loads of cohort, community building sessions and stuff to help people with what they're doing. And that means that we want to do it well rather than doing lots of it. So we're trying to help people do that. And we're also really big on this community aspect. And we found that people not only find the course easier to do in terms of workload, but also easier to do emotionally when they do it with somebody they already know. So to try and encourage that, we're doing a train together kind of offer. So if you and someone else sign up to do the course with us together, we'll give you some money off your course because we found that the success rate is much higher. People are much happier while they're doing the course, and it makes our life easier as tutors because, happy students, motivated students, we're all kind of getting on together. So if you want to be part of a community rather than just being put through a conveyor belt, then have a look at our website. It goes to myforestschooltraining.co.uk. That'll take you to the Children of Forest website, and you can go from there, get your application in, and join our communities. So on with the podcast.
I'm Wem.
And I'm Lewis.
This is the Forest School Podcast.
Let's go!
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the show. Here we go.
What did you say, Annie? You said there needs to be a word for when you get around an awkward situation by saying it's not awkward, is it? It's not. I mean, it is slightly awkward. It's on Secret Life of 5-Year-Olds. They had a little girl on there who the horrible people that set up the experiments are behind a thing, and they're like, sometimes children have big emotions that they can't process, and so it comes out through song and craft. And then it cut to a girl, a 4-year-old in a little tree house on her own, just going, I love my mommy. I love her so much. I miss her today. But not dramatically singing it, with a tear in her eye. Just she was singing it as she banged her feet on the swing and I feel I think I must have said this before. It's also how you have awkward conversations. I have awkward conversations with my partner. You've left your shit all over the house.
Oh, yeah, it's very non-confrontational, isn't it, to do that?
Or doubly confrontational.
Passive aggressive.
Yeah, yes, because it's could you just have a sit? Could you just be, for once? Could you not? Yeah.
Yeah. So, can I just say this? I don't know how I feel about you doing a podcast without me. It's fine. It's not fine. No, it's completely fine.
Yeah.
I am sad to have missed it because I have listened to this podcast, and you met a really cool person who I wish that I could have met
Lara. Well, Lara came. So Lara got in touch with us ages ago to say they're planning a trip and they're coming to the UK from Canada, from Ottowa, and did we have time to go meet and show them their program and what we do and everything. And we weren't running anything, at that point in the summer. So I just went in. I think we recorded about an hour. I was there for about 3.5 hours with Lara, just walking around, chatting about what we do, talking about our different programs and how it all works. And it was really good. It was a very intense networking thing. We always say going to local FSA meetups or the FSA conferences are good because you talk to people about your practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Helps you crystallize things, put it into focus. And I just love hearing about other people's stuff, especially stuff in other countries. I will never get bored of hearing someone talk about like the environment at their setting in a different country, you know, or the weather and all those kind of things, which you talked about with Lara. So listeners, if there's anyone else who is working somewhere that isn't the UK, and you want to chat with us, then drop us a line, because I'll always say yes.
Or is the UK, but isn't the
was
middle of Devon.
True that. Yeah, I was on holiday. That's why I wasn't there. I was in Greece reading a book and snorkeling in this. Yeah. So I can't compare. I can't be too, you know, annoyed that I wasn't there.
No, but if anyone's wondering like what you and I's relationship is like, I sent you something and you sent me back a photo of a very big bowline.
Yes, I did.
From the ship that you were on. So Gemma went across Europe and sent me a picture of a big knot.
Yes. I was like, check out this big knot. It's good.
Lewis doesn't like big knots. I'll show him this big one.
Yeah. Lovely. Yeah, so listeners, I think you'll enjoy this. It's a very interesting podcast, and I don't know if we have anything else important to say. Do we have?
I would just say that it is a slightly different podcast than we've done before, because I wasn't interviewing Lara just about her practice. There's also bits of Lara asking me about things that we do. So because and some of it is stuff that we get asked a lot by people who go, I really like the podcast. How do you do this thing? Or how do you do this thing? So it was nice to have it like recorded a bit. I was slightly nervous that you weren't there because there was no one to fact check me or go like, we've never done this, Lewis. What are you on about? But I think you've listened to it and you've not called me out on anything. So people who want to know about our practice as well, this is a good one. It's got some little nuggets in there about what we do. So yeah, enjoy.
But when it's just a need, when it's just like your self-worth is in the toilet.
There's a hole in my heart. Yeah, there's a hole in my heart, and I need you to acknowledge me.
Yeah.
I need you to say you see me.
On the subject of acknowledging you, I should probably, because I've already started this. So, I'm in the woods. We're in the woods again, but with no Wem. And I'm here with Lara. Do you want to say a little about you and what your work is? And maybe like, how did you come to do your work?
So I'm Lara Purvis, and I run a program called Out to Play. And Out to Play is in Canada, in Ottowa, in Ontario. And in the city of Ottowa, in that while it's not in the downtown, it is about 15 minutes from downtown, in an area that has lots of houses, lots of schools, lots of shops, malls and shopping centers. And Ottawa has a lot of green space, so a lot of protected space owned by, well, we'll be careful about owned, a lot of green space managed by the city of Ottawa.
Sure.
and managed also by the National Capital Commission, and that's protected conservation and agricultural land. And it runs, a big band of green space runs right through the city, including through like the downtown areas and along the river. So Out to Play is in that green space and in natural spaces across the city. So public parks.
Okay.
And we run forest and nature school programming for children ages 2.5 to 4 are the preschoolers, 4 to 10 are the foxes, so the school-age children, and then 8 to 12 are the older children, and they're called wolves. And we don't yet have a program for teenagers, and I say yet because I know it's a need, and we're thinking about it. There's so many needs, and we're presented with ideas by the community all the time. Like, have you thought about doing overnights? Have you thought about doing teenagers? Have you thought about doing all-day family groups? And we're presented with ideas very, very often, and then we have to say, wonderful idea, we'd love to do it, we need to pause and go slowly, because going slowly is what makes it holds us to a certain level of quality and intention and thoughtfulness. So those are the programs we run. We run pretty much 5 days a week. I say that because sometimes we run 6, and we have a team of educators that are teachers and early childhood educators, a child and youth worker, a recreational therapist.
Wow.
Yeah. Our spaces are awesome because we've got meadow, so that's farm, and then forest around the outside, and our shelters are wall tents, so canvas wall tents.
How big are the shelters?
About 16 by 20, so quite big.
Meters?
Feet.
Oh, feet. Okay.
Yeah, quite big. We get huge winds, and those wall tents are anchored down into the ground by ropes and like these spiral anchors. And but the winds make them shake and lean.
When you sent me the stuff about your program, I was reading it and going, was it minus 25, minus 30 or something?
Right. I don't even talk about winter because I forget how unusual it is. But yes, we run program through winter, and it can be minus 20. It can be minus 24, 25. We haven't yet hit a day when we have not run program because of the temperature, but it is possible. But we have run it in minus 20, minus 22, minus 24 degrees Celsius.
And just to be like a sadist, how was that? I want to know about that experience.
The children are dressed well. The children are wearing their base layers. So often that is like a merino wool base layer, and over that is often fleece pajamas. A lot of pajamas,
right. Yeah.
Fleece pajamas, and then over that is going to be their snowsuit, and that's water resistant, waterproof on the outside. They're super cozy. The parts of them that will get cold if they stop moving are their fingers and their toes, and they've got great socks on. We find that one pair of socks works better than 2 because you need some air circulating around your toes.
Really?
Yeah, and then really waterproof boots. And then our job as educators is to really keep them moving. And so we're busy, and we're animated, and we're confident, and we're excited about the weather, and we're exclaiming about how beautiful it is, because they're sometimes being dropped off by a parent who's feeling a lot of trepidation.
Yeah.
And we need both their parent and the children to know that we've got this. We know how to play and stay warm and be comfortable in this weather.
Yeah.
And when we need to eat, we'll go inside and sit by the wood stove, which has been burning for a few hours. So the tent inside is warm. But as soon as you open the tent all the way up and everyone traipses in, all the cold air comes in, and we need it to warm up again. They keep their outdoor gear on inside because going in and out lets a lot of heat out. But they'll take off their mittens and they'll eat their food. And we'll change mittens often.
Okay.
Change socks anytime they get damp.
Right.
And then we're okay.
So when you say change mittens, do you change them just when they get damp, when they've been playing in?
Yeah.
Presumably
and they
in
get
the snow
damp
and stuff?
so fast.
Yeah.
Even when it's freezing cold. The
How do
mittens are
you
soaked.
find, so a lot of our learners that come through, I'm sure it's universal thing is like the trade-off between mittens are warm but gloves give you dexterity. You know, like that thing of like, I really need to do this thing. And I'm doing something now with my hands.
Yes.
But you know a mitten would be in some ways warmer.
Yes. So some of our children will wear glove liners inside of their mittens.
Okay.
And that's like a polypropylene, or it's a synthetic material that is quite warm, but it's definitely not good enough to take mittens off for extended periods of time.
Right.
And they can take their mittens off, do a thing,
Yep.
put their mittens back on. And then we have to switch them again when they get wet.
Right.
And as educators, we feel a fair amount of, like, I'd be lying if I said we are relaxed in those temperatures.
Yeah, sure. I can imagine.
Yes. There's a level of anxiety that we carry quietly, and we're just always watching to ensure that children are comfortable and safe in those temperatures, that they're moving. If a child is feeling overwhelmed by the cold or feeling like I can't do this with the cold, it's okay for them to take some time to sit inside, have a little warm up.
Yeah.
We will take off their mittens and we will do a dragon breath in their mittens.
Oh yeah.
Which isn't so COVID friendly right now.
Sure.
But we'll blow hot air and we'll show them how to do it. I've sat with a child, I've taken their boots off and I've warmed their toes in my hands.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and put their boots back on, made sure that they have decent socks. And then that's why we have, I told you about our gear library, so we've got about 8 huge bins of warm gear. And that's because we need to, if a child arrives with cotton socks, we need to take off those socks and put on warm socks. And we have to do it without saying to the child, your socks are wrong.
Yeah.
These socks won't work. Something you and your family has done is inadequate. That's not the approach we're going to take, but we're going to say, I have some socks that might make the difference. Let's go get them. We'll tuck these into your backpack. And then we'll warm up their toes and put on some really warm socks.
How do you navigate, I don't know if you have learned it, so like, the coldest we've ever done here is -4. And we were all very impressed that we did -4.
Celsius?
Yeah, Celsius. We do Celsius for temperature, and then we pick and choose from Imperial when we want to. So -4 Celsius, and we were all very proud. And feel a bit shit now, but yeah. And and we did quite a lot of sessions where it's like 0 or -1, and that's cold. That's cold for us, and cold for. I think with all these things, it's like it's always relative to what you're used to. Like the kids here are used to these climates. -4 is cold to them, but a lot of the work we do and have done is with like neurodivergent learners or learners with different needs, and like winter, I find the time where you can sometimes become aware of sensory issues that aren't present in the summer, because in the summer it's fine, or you just the kids walk around here barefoot some of the time and do whatever. It's only in the winter that you go, whoa, could you put that on? And they're like, sensorily it's not happening. Do you have similar experiences, and how do you, because 25 it's got to be -25, so it's got to be a different ballgame.
Yes, and we don't have the same flexibility with that feels uncomfortable for you, so it's okay if you don't wear it. But what we do have is a really great relationship with our parent community. So parents who know that their children have sensory issues and that might struggle with wearing something that we offer, because often it's like something that's unfamiliar, that they don't know what it's going to feel like. They have been sent with a backup bag filled with extra gear. And every child arrives with a backup bag filled with extra gear because they've got a packing list. But those parents are sometimes reaching out to us to say they will only wear socks that hug in this place and this place. If a sock feels too tight, they won't wear it. If a sock's going to droop down, they won't wear it. And then we've got a child who's really sad and unhappy that might be tearful because their toes are sore. And we really need them to be able to have socks that work for them. So that's when the communication between us and a parent is critical, because they know what their child will wear. And we'll make a phone call home to say, we're struggling with the cold a little bit. They're not liking these socks. The parents are already like, totally called that. I've already planned for that, or I'm on my way with some options.
Great.
Yeah.
That's really good to have that level of open relationship and like acceptance around them just being needs, and I don't know how to phrase what I'm saying now. Just to have parents that are that on board with like, to know it's got a hug here and here and here, and not feel embarrassed about that, and not feel anything else, and just to be like, they want to go out. So this is the stuff. Yeah,
and I think that we are very aware of how much trust they have in us if they're dropping off their children in a day that it's going to rain all day, it's going to pour all day, and you dropped off your children and trusted us, or it's going to be minus 20 all day, and with the wind chill it's minus 24, and you trusted us. And so we're very aware of that trust, and I think that it facilitates us being really communicative with our families and our parents, and them knowing that they're doing their part too, to ensure that their children are going to stay safe and comfortable. And it does ask for a bit, like, I want to always acknowledge that it does ask for a bit of privilege. It's not,
yeah, without a doubt.
yeah, it's not every family that can own some of that gear, or just like zoot out from work to quickly pop by and drop off a different pair of socks.
Yeah.
And we're aware of that and trying to figure that out, how to become accessible to families who don't have all of that privilege too.
It's removing barriers, isn't it? It's
Right.
and that's, yeah, it's a huge part of doing. I think anybody working in the outdoors at the moment has some level of responsibility to identify and remove barriers that they can. And I think there's an interesting thing where, like, I'm conscious that we just did in our last podcast episode about play and it being teachers' responsibility to, like, advocate for play, and I was listening back to it and I was like, well, I do sort of agree, but there's also going to be that contingent of people who didn't get into the job to do advocacy. I don't mean that in a way of, like, that's not poo-pooing those people, like, in the same way that, like, you might go into it into teaching because you like doing stuff in the classroom, and then somebody tells you that, oh, also you should be trying to change the education system in the country. You're like, whoa, I just wanted to, do drawing on the whiteboard and go A for apple, B for bear, sort of stuff. And similarly, like, it's trying to make, in the outdoor world, make it clear that we have the opportunity to remove those barriers, but not to make people feel bad if they're not able to, because they've got, if their bowl is full of stuff already, if their cup is already full, to put on another thing of like, oh, and also you have to be doing this thing. So it's like,
especially on teachers who are working so hard and are being asked of and doing so much unpaid labor. I like to think of it as like people like you and I and those that choose to do the advocacy piece are doing it so that not everyone else has to.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. I want to move slightly over if we can. So one of the other things that you very helpfully sent me a list of things, which is really interesting to read. And I think this will be seamless. You ready? In minus 25, we're just talking about dexterity and stuff. So you and I have already had a chat about tool use and stuff.
Yes.
So I wonder if I can ask you about tool use in extreme temperatures, and then maybe you can ask me about tool use here.
Sure.
Because I didn't really answer your questions earlier.
Yeah.
But so what does tool use look like in those temperatures? Or in your setting in general, I guess, because you're not always
Yeah. So in our setting in general, we're seeing children not often ask for tools because they are so actively engaged, and we don't have our tools lying out on a table that their eyes fall on them and they're like, that cool axe,
Cool.
can I use that cool
Right.
thing? But there are children that know that they can walk up to us and say, can I whittle?
Right.
And we'll say, absolutely. Or we might say, right now, for me to sit with you while you whittle isn't going to work because
Sure.
I'm also supporting these friends over here. How do we feel about doing it just after lunch? And that might be an approach that we take, and it takes me back to part of the conversation we were talking about where you're often looking for opportunities for children not to have to ask you for things, not for you to be the gatekeeper. And when it comes to tools, for us in our program, we are gatekeepers, and that I think has something to do with the fact that I think that we are in a slightly more risk-averse and conservative society with children's programs than you have here. like, I'll come back to the tools, but the
Sure.
playgrounds are a wonderful example.
Oh yeah.
Your adventure playgrounds, in the UK, there are so many of them, and there's even the ones that aren't noteworthy, even the ones that don't say some kind of like Google review, this is an awesome natural adventure playground, even the ones that don't say that are so special, that the materials are made out of wood, and there's ways to move water, and there's ways to climb things, and there's so many different ways to move across that giant pile of logs or through that hollowed out log and up that net. And we don't see that a lot. What we have a lot of are metal, colorful playgrounds where it seems like there's only one way to do things. And it's pretty small. There's often a fence around it. A lot of your playgrounds have an area that's fenced, but then the playground continues on the outside of the fence and kind of gradually weans into the park. And I've noticed that a fair bit too. So there's this invitation of motion. And maybe you're bigger, you don't have to stay inside the fenced-in area, but the logs continue and the net to climb continues, and it leads you out towards a zip line or something, and then the park continues. And there's no one person standing next to the zip line saying, yes, you can go, you need to wait. Yes, you're big enough to go, you need to wait. It's just there. And it's this invitation that says, I trust you. You are worthy of my trust. Have a great time.
Those are sadly in the decline. I don't know how much of the history of adventure playgrounds you've looked into. They were a big, like 70s and 80s program, and it came along with something in this country called playworking, which was all about facilitating play, and it came under a very pro-social government, lots of money into programs that helped children and programs that helped all this stuff, and we're not in that situation now in 2022. We've moved away from those things, or the government has moved away from those things, to I think playgrounds are more and more on their way to, as you describe, colourful bars, and this is the way round to do it, and there's one point of access.
So disappointing.
Yeah, it's a thing that is, it's great that the adventure playgrounds and stuff exist, and they're not obviously not as dense as they once were, and a lot of them have had to shut because they moved to becoming as we were just saying, like a privileged thing. They rely on funding, they rely on charitable status. There's big movements, in the country where we build, like new build developments. Someone's going to build 40 houses, someone's going to build 100 houses.
Then they have to put this much money into.
So the park is always the last thing to get built.
Okay.
Or the social space, or the school, or whatever it is, and they will most likely be what you're describing.
Yes.
As,
That's how ours come to be too. But yes.
Yeah. And I think there's something about it's very easy to argue for more protection. It's very hard to argue for more risk.
Yes.
It's very hard to undo it and say, well, this playground exists, why don't we make it more dangerous? Like, that's insane,
Or more exciting.
But the idea that you would be removing safety in some way, it sounds different, doesn't it? Like, rolling something back away from safety is harder than, do you know what I mean? Rolling it towards.
Certainly.
And it's a creeping thing of, like, it gets a little bit safer and a little bit safer and a little bit safer, until it stops being fun, it stops being a thing. I will just, we were talking about access to tools and stuff. So in terms of, like, removing boundaries and gatekeeping and stuff, so that cabin is shut off. That's for me and Wem. Nobody else goes in there because, as you've seen, the wall is covered in sharp, pointy things. We have some big trugs. They're like big container box things. One of them has loads of drills in it, like hand drills, and another one has hammers and nails, and we will get those boxes out and put them up on that table over there, and we'll know that that's going on. In terms of everything else, we do gatekeep. We do have almost word for word. Can I come and whittle? Yes, I'm just doing this now, but I will come and do that thing.
Okay.
There's never a time where we would just go like, yeah, the knives are there, help yourselves, do whatever, because it just, I think that would, for me, that would border on negligence.
Yes.
Because you need to know, what do I think? I think you have to make trade-offs in different places. So one of the trade-offs that we have is our site is only 3 acres. You've had a little walk around and seen 80% of it. We don't keep the group together.
Yes.
They can just go, because 3 acres is enough that in 2 minutes you can walk from one side to the other. You can see where everybody is. Because we're a hill, we can see lots of stuff going on. That's, as it is. Some people I know run forest school in 45 acres, and he has to keep the group together, because you can't just let 15 kids go in 45 acres. So our trade-off of freedom physically comes at a restraint here.
Yes.
In terms, whereas, so if you've got this 45 acre site, you might keep all the kids in a 20 meter space, and then you probably could be a bit more relaxed about the box of knives is there, because
Everyone's right here.
everyone's right here. You're only watching a small bit. So our trade-off is like big freedom there, so we do slightly restrict what's going on there. And the tools will have different, depending on the kids, we might have between 5 and 8 of them whittling with one of us nearby. If one of them wants to get an axe, then that's more of a one-to-one thing.
Yeah.
Somebody once told me, if you cut yourself with a knife, actually it was Martin, I don't know if Martin listens to this, he said if you cut yourself with a knife, it's so sharp that by the time you've told someone you've cut yourself, it's already started coming back together, because those cuts are so thin. He said if you cut yourself with an axe, that finger is on the floor for quite a long time before, so that you're doing that risk assessment, risk benefit analysis all the time. So I think tools are something that you do need to slightly gatekeep, but people are, one of the big things that I've started doing is like, so we've got our sawbuck up there, and it's, as long as you are doing relatively the right thing in terms of like, as long as your hands are behind the ears or antlers or whatever you want to call it, and you're doing this motion, there's very little that can go wrong there. The risk of it is actually pretty low. So parents often look quite taken aback that I will do a couple of pulls.
Yeah.
So ours is a bow.
Yes.
And I'll give the kids the handle and I'll go on the other side. We go backwards and forwards, and then I will look up to the parent and go, you can do this, can't you? And just assume confidence.
Yes.
Like you were saying about being confident with the clothing. You just go like, you can do this, can't you? You can hold this, put your hand there, and they go, yeah, you go, right, cool, crack on then. Give them the saw.
Yeah.
And then I've taken myself out of the equation, and that's really empowering, I think, for a lot of parents to like, they're not expecting to be involved. They're not expecting to be given autonomy and all those things, and like reduce it. Sorry, this is my alarm to tell me that it's 10:30. I should probably eat something.
And I ate your granola bar.
That's fine, I will eat later. Yeah. And so, and actually one of the things you asked about was like tools with toddlers, like specifically young children.
Yes.
And tell me if I'm wrong, I sense that there's like that risk aversion thing. The younger the kids are, the higher that sense of risk aversion is. So there's different things that we would do. So like, have you done whittling against your knee?
This whittling, like this?
Yeah, so
I'm doing a motion of like holding it across my...
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm going to do a slight bit of training now for everybody listening. So you put your knees together and you move it away and you put the stick across your body.
That's actually the way we mostly whittle.
Perfect. Right, so there is another way. I'm going to use a stick as a knife, which is where if this is your knife, you hold it against your knee, and instead of the... you put the handle on your knee, and instead of the knife moving, the stick moves.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it is remarkably hard to do anything.
That's great.
So the worst that can happen is you put your hand too far forwards,
right?
And you come in. So you do need to watch, obviously. But for lots of learners, the act of pushing with a blade is really hard. But you put it on your knee and you pull under, and actually you've changed. We're all humans, biomechanically. We're stronger at pulling. Like, this muscle works better. This muscle's rubbish. I'm doing this and people can't see. Your biceps are rubbish, your triceps are really good. So pulling with your triceps has more strength. So putting there and there, you're using this big muscle underneath. So with smaller children, we would either do that, or if they're with their adult, quite often they'll just mirror everything. And I say, sit on your parent. Everybody's knees go this way. Parent's arm goes round. Everybody's here. The risk is not really any different to a 5-year-old doing it on their own.
So you will put out a bin of drills and a bin of
Hammers and nails.
And you will walk away.
So this is everything we do is like group dependent, learner dependent.
Yes.
Who is it? How long have they been coming? All this stuff. A toddler group that everybody there has been coming. Some of our toddler groups, like the newest person has been coming for 6 months.
Right.
And the longest term person has been coming for 3 years.
Okay.
Actually, more than that, because we've got some people that are coming with their second kids. So, you're talking about adults that have been here for ages. So it might be that they're up there on the table.
Yes.
And that we are, for the sake of people listening, 20 metres away doing some painting here. The line is clearly visible.
Yes.
And, you can see everything that's going on. I guess the thing would be, what's the worst thing that can happen? How likely is it? And does it make a huge difference if you're there in 5 seconds or 1 second?
Yeah, someone's banged their finger with a hammer. They've already banged their finger with a hammer, and you're right there. Yeah.
And would you? And this is the thing: is like, it's like engaging with it enough. I think the thought process then getting through, like, I could be standing next to them; they'll still hit their thumb with a hammer.
Either way.
In some ways, they might hit it more because I'm making them nervous. So having a bit of, like, I always think of it as like elastic, like a bungee cord. And the more comfortable I am and the kids are with the tool, the further I can pull that elastic.
Yes.
So it's not this is why it's hard when we do like training, because we do training for people to do forest school and stuff, and people really want how far should the seedings be away from the fire? How many children is it? What's the ratio of 2-year-olds when they're doing knives? What's the ratio of a 10-year-old with a drill?
Yes.
And you go,
yeah, it's relationship based.
it's relationship based and it's individual learner based. You give me 5 people where they're all, who are all neurodiverse, and I'm not going to stand as far away as I am with a different group of learners who have different needs and who, do you know what I mean? Like,
yes, and I find that to be a tricky thing to explain to people, because when we're making those judgment calls, we're relying on our experience that is informing the decision that we're making. And our relationship with the children. And then a new educator doesn't necessarily have those gut instincts that they can pull on.
Yeah.
And so that's why they're looking for the exact distance.
Yeah. And that makes people feel safe.
Yes.
Yeah. I think there is something I once watched someone do some forest school sessions, and I realised, like you're saying about that gut instinct, and they didn't have the, like, I would call it helicopter sense, in that they would sit down with a group and wouldn't look up from what that group was doing.
Right.
As opposed to, I don't really, I'm focused on what's going on here, but I'm also, my ears are tuned in over here, and half my head is watching this, and my peripheral vision, and like, it's a really hard thing to teach someone, isn't it? Like,
yes.
So yeah, it's very, I think, like, when you went in the cabinet, you kind of went, oh shit, there's a lot of tools in
So
here.
many tools.
Yeah. And I think that's, you and I talked about spiky profiles of different forest school people doing different things.
Yes.
And like, you don't have to get any tools out to do forest school.
No, you don't. And yet, like, if, in my case, I feel a desire to bring more tools into our work. At Out to Play, we've got the occasional saw and the whittling knives, and then a mallet if someone's going to help us split kindling. I feel the desire to bring more tools in because I grew up as a little girl child who saw the adult men using tools. And then luckily my father, who didn't have a son, was willing to have me help him with things, saw that I loved it, and then taught me how to use so many tools and how to build things. And I know that so many people who have grown up as had that like girl experience, lived experience as a woman, they haven't had a lot of representation of like, you can do this thing. They haven't seen it a lot, and they haven't had a lot of opportunity, and it's very gendered. So I really want more tools in our practice and in our program so that it can be this non-gendered thing, this accessible, anyone can do this experience, because learning how to build things has to be one of the most empowering experiences.
Definitely.
To not have to always rely on someone to do it for you, which I think can really limit us as adults.
Oh, definitely.
So I am interested in having more tools and seeing that wall of big, sharp things.
What do you think might be
Wall
your
of big, sharp
next thing?
things.
So you've got mallets and saws and a knife. What do you have an idea about? Like, I want to bring this one in, but I don't know how. Or do you?
I think that what I would like to do is something I had an idea of before I opened Out to Play, and then it just got like nudged aside. Is we don't have like a tool area, and you have you use tools in different areas, but you also have an area that invites and calls to tools, and I think that will be something that I would like to create based on what I've seen here. That and your blackboards, which for listeners is the way to help children take turns without...
they've heard us bang on about this.
Yeah.
Over and over again.
Yeah, without being forced to share. But yeah, a tool zone will probably naturally invite us to feel safe experimenting. Pull out saws more would be nice. Yeah.
We found having, actually one of the big things that's changed recently is having a range of saws. So like we started with, the training that Wem and I did, it was like a bow saw is the saw.
Right.
Me
too.
Right.
That was the one I learned.
And it actually took a little while before we were like, oh, okay, well we buy big bags of offcuts from timber mills.
Yeah.
So they're like this big, it's like the size of a coaster, and they're about a centimetre thick. And it's all offcuts of planks and whatever else. And you buy them for like £2. There's a big dumpy bag of them. It's amazing. And so the kids make stuff out of that. They make models, they make robots, they make figures, whatever else. And a bow saw's not the right tool.
Right.
So we started getting some coping saws. You know, they look like tiny bow saws. Like
cute.
A little thin thing and then a hook. And that just opened up this whole thing of like, actually sawing doesn't have to be this huge thing where we use it whole, but sawing can be taking these little V shapes out. And then we got some timber saws, like a a saw that you would draw. And having them, you don't necessarily need to go and get like an adze and a fro and a spoon carving gouge and all these, like actually, even in just terms of axes, like, do you have a side axe?
No, I don't actually know what kind of axe I have.
So axes come in all different shapes, sizes.
Yeah.
So a side axe is an incredible tool, because if you think about, if you were looking, if you were holding an axe with the blade pointing away from you, like handle down, blade pointing away from you, and you're looking down at the handle, and it comes together like this, right? Like it comes together in the middle, which means you've got, so that when you split, the wood comes off in a V.
Yeah.
So a side axe is off to one side.
Okay.
So you have one completely flat side.
Okay.
So if you want to make a bench, you can't make it with a normal axe. You need a side axe.
Right. It needs to be flat.
It needs to be flat on one side. And having a side axe opens up a world of possibilities that just a normal axe, you know, a bog standard I've been to,
Yes.
whatever hardware store and bought an axe.
Yeah.
Suddenly a side axe is like, oh, okay, we can make flat things now.
So what if children, how have they used the side axe?
So we've made some bushcraft benches before.
The boards you have to stop erosion and to create steps, are they from a side axe?
Yeah, so some of that is from a side axe, some of that is from a froe.
Okay.
So a froe is an old tool that just looks like a steel bar with a big, and the handle goes up rather than down. So you knock it in, and then when you pull the handle down, it opens up the wedge.
It's splitting.
It's splitting in a very uniform way. So people used to make shingles out of it, and chestnut that splits in this. Anyway, I'm waffling on, but like these tools are, I think there'll be loads of people in a similar situation to you where they're like, I've got a box of axes, I've maybe got like a hammer, what do I need to get next? And your brain goes to like, let's get the kids' chainsaws, let's get the, you know, like whatever. And like actually just going like, have you got a slightly different variation on what you've already got?
That's
Like-
a nice idea.
Yeah.
Because then you're growing also within your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't want to be, and I would always say like, give yourself a couple of months with a new tool before you bring it to work. You need to be doing stuff with it.
Super comfy.
Well, not even super comfy, but like confident enough that you could go, here's a couple of things I've made with it, or here's a, you know, I've got this really, so you can still, I think if you go too long, you stop being excited about it. You still want to bring it in with some excitement, like, I've got this fucking axe thing, and it's well good, let me show you what it does, you know. Like, I'm still learning to use, you know, crook knives, like, for spoons.
Yes.
I'm still crap with them, but I still find it exciting,
Right.
and they're an interesting thing to get out of the box. And the kids are, oh, what the fuck are you about? You're like, yeah, I'm doing this thing, and like, scares the living daylights out of me. We've got a double-sided one, so it is a blade on both sides. So right-handed and left-handed people can use it. Jesus Christ. Genuinely, it would go through your thumb and not think about it.
Yes.
It's so scary. But it's really exciting
Yes.
for that reason.
Yeah.
And I think one thing I would say, you may already do this, but like it was such a big learning point for me that I feel like I want to put it in this recording, was we for a really long time didn't talk about what to do if you cut yourself.
Okay.
So we would go through all of the, like you and I just did, put your
Yeah.
ears to the side, go like this, do this, and then go, you know, that'll keep you nice and safe, that'll do all this stuff. And we had a couple of learners then who had accidents, who cut themselves, and they thought they'd done something wrong.
Okay.
And then we went to a festival, Wem and I together, and we saw a guy. It was a festival where children earn a knife license. It's a cool festival. So the kids have a little sticker, and it basically means if you see that kid holding a knife, they're all right. From 3, right? And they can go and do whatever they want. They're walking around this festival, fucking tooled up, right? It was incredible. I saw a 4-year-old with a 2-foot machete, like hanging off, and he had the stick, and you're like, okay, you know what you're doing with that, that's fine. But the guy doing the licenses was like, when you cut yourself, not if, when. If you use a knife, eventually you are going to cut yourself. It's not a bad thing, it's going to happen. You grab it, you put it over your head, and you shout, Lewis, I've cut myself! Really loud. And you make it funny, and you make it stupid, and like, it just takes, you know, we watched that, and both Wham and I walked out of this tent feeling like we suddenly had knife licenses, and we were like, oh god, that's why people have been like hiding their cuts. You know, we had one kid genuinely cut his hand and walk off and didn't tell us for half a day because we told him how to cut.
Yes.
He'd done something wrong, and he thought he was hiding the evidence.
Yeah.
And so actually now we've included that now whenever we do a tool talk, and it just to remove some of that stigma, to remove some of that guilt, and be like, if something goes wrong, this is how we're going to deal with it. We're going to do that and do that.
It makes so much sense, and I never thought of it before, but when we put up slack lines and things that children are going to climb, we will say, and when you fall, because did you know that when you play, you will fall sometimes?
Yeah.
When you fall, you might get a bump or a bruise. You might need to hold yourself. It's okay to ask for help, but I've never said, and when you cut yourself. put your hand above your head, hold
Yeah.
it really tight, and shout, "Hey, Lara, I need help!"
Yeah. And it's such a small thing, but like, you know, and also in terms of confidence.
It says you're okay to make a mistake. It's okay to make a mistake. And maybe it wasn't even a mistake.
Yeah. The when sometimes needs work on. You can see someone's already bricking it about holding a knife. And you go, when you cut yourself, you might like tone that one down. But like, yeah. They say it's something we put in other practices, but we don't always bring it over into tools.
Yeah. Because we're feeling scared on their behalf sometimes. It'd be nice.
Not really.
Yeah. But I think that might be why.
But I think that I've said this to parents before, which is what I just go, yeah, you know, toddler groups and stuff, and I go, yeah, but I have a different connection to this person, so I'm more comfortable putting them at risk. And not in a horrible way, like I'm going to throw their kids, you know, but just like, I don't have the same parental attachment to your children as you do, and that's not a bad thing.
It's not life-threatening,
No.
the risk that you're putting them.
I'm just looking at things in a slightly more like calculated way. My emotional input is different in this scenario. Hopefully that's useful in some ways. Do you have anything where you said you do family? Oh no, so you said someone asked you to do family things. Do you
We
do
do
any
do-
family stuff?
We
Okay.
do a family group. Often it's a parent and one toddler and one baby,
Okay.
because maybe they're on leave
Mhm.
and they can join us, and they're looking for connection, looking to be outside, and looking for help, knowing how cautious and how open to be when they're outside with their children.
Mhm.
Often they're looking for that.
Is it quite a... So you said you're in the green strip in the middle of the city. Does that mean that the parents that come to you have a lower nature connection or like less experience in nature? Or are they
No,
nature connected adults that are bringing their children? Or
they're often very nature connected adults who are looking to be outside more and have support with their children outside, doing something a little bit more risky.
Mhm.
Sometimes, I don't know, you're a parent of young children, so I don't know if you've experienced this, but parents are frequently experiencing judgment, or so like aware or looking to see if they're experiencing judgment.
Yeah.
And the judgment is real, like it's there.
oh yeah.
Yeah, whether you're at the playground and your child has no shoes on, and every other child has shoes on, or maybe your child wasn't sharing that truck in the sand pit, and
Yeah.
parents experience judgment so much, and so a parent that wants to see their child climb and explore and feels quite confident that their 3-year-old can climb up that giant tree and walk along it and sit down and pretend it's a train, but someone else is standing close by and saying, "Oh, that's a bit high, isn't it?" So they are looking for a safe space to
It's a bit find your tribe.
find like space for their children to stretch out and explore. And sometimes they're looking for like support in knowing when to pull back and when not to. So they're joining us. So they're generally folks who have already embraced being outside and looking at how to do it with children and looking for community. So it's generally those families, and I would love to connect more with families who find it a bit harder and a bit scarier, and families who are new to the country, and figuring out how to do that, because we've got huge amounts of green space in Canada and in Ottowa, and there's so much to explore, but it can feel very intimidating. Like when we have worked with schools, parents have asked, are there going to be bears there? And these are families that are...
What's the answer?
The answer is no.
Okay.
These are families that are new to Canada, and to them the forest might feel scary.
Yeah.
And we've been with children who have walked into the forest and said, "I've never been in a forest before." And so those, I have like a specific soft spot for those families and communities, or the child who's never climbed a tree before. and you are present the first time they climb a tree, like that's a real kind of magic.
Yeah.
That's all very special, and so finding ways to connect with those families and say, this land is safe and we've got you. We're still figuring that out. Yeah.
Yeah, I realised I didn't answer earlier. You asked me. I can't remember exactly what you asked me, but you said like, how do you tell the parents about what's going on, or how do you? We were talking about that friction of feeling like you want to say something or you don't want to say something. It's like, I feel like I've been on a huge journey with that, and it's not always been like a pleasant journey, and I didn't always get it right. And like, you know, I can remember really things I shouldn't have done, like very directly challenging something, you know. But it was like you said. They say the example you gave of someone walking along a high thing and somebody being nearby and going, "Oh, isn't that a bit high?" And I basically did the same, but from the opposite point of view. Like, I told someone their kid didn't need to share after they'd told their kid, be nice and share. And I like directly confronted them about it like at a toddler group in front of a couple of other parents. And it'd been going on for a while, and I don't know, in the moment I just kind of went like, now's my time, I'm going to talk to you about this thing. And it was absolutely the wrong thing, because like you say, there's judgment all over the place. They're in my space, right? This is my setting. They've come here. There's other parents watching, and you know, however you want to perceive it, maybe they felt like I called them out in front of other parents because I had, and just this stuff that's like horrible, right? And I would never do, you know, I wouldn't do now. And it's so much more, I think, now about. So we have we don't always get them out, like laminated cards with like a couple of key things with very brief, like 2-paragraph explanations. And we leave them out on the kitchen table where all the tea and coffee is, so we're not there when they read them, but they say stuff like, at Children of the Forest we believe in allowing war play, and then it'll have a couple of paragraphs about why we allow war play, and it moves on. Or, you know, we believe in not always needing to say sorry, a couple of paragraphs. And we like, partly that stuff's there to go, this is our pedagogy, this is what we're doing, this is the space you're in, like, get ready. And partly it's there so that, like the example you gave for someone saying, you know, feeling that judgment of like, I should tell my child they need to share. I should tell my child to step out of the way or whatever. And partly that stuff is there to explain why you won't see us do it. So quite often our toddler groups, we're off with the kids, or we're away playing with the kids, and the adults are sat here or they're doing something else. And those cards help to explain like why you won't see us tell your kids off if they start fighting with sticks. Or like why you won't see us, you know, tell people they've had 2 swings and need to go. But I think most of what we do now is done through modelling and
yes, us too.
And have you come across the term pole bridging?
No.
Which is like just verbalising everything
Yes.
to the ethos.
Yes.
To the ethos, to the ether. So you're sort of saying it for the parent that's sat behind you and is listening.
Absolutely.
But you're basically just talking into the air like, I wonder if Tom's feeling okay about this, and I wonder if we could do this thing. And like,
we do that too.
Great. It's exactly that thing, isn't it? It's like modelling by stealth.
Yeah.
And because there's so much stuff that goes on in that parental judgment space that's unsaid.
Yeah.
You know, it's like worry that someone is saying something, worry that someone is thinking something. Whereas if you could loudly be like, I don't mind that they're playing with sticks because I think it's healthy, you know, like, it just helps people to feel okay. And if they're watching, they know we're not judging their kids,
Yes.
we're not doing whatever.
I've walked up to a parent before who's watching and looking a bit concerned, but clearly not sure if they should intervene or shouldn't. And I've said, how does this make you feel?
Ooh, nice.
And they will say, I'm scared they're going to get hurt, or I'm totally okay with it, but I feel like you probably aren't. Like and it's helpful. It's like a launching pad for us to talk about the emotional responses we feel to children's play, and also how we're going to respond in this moment and why. You said that you support war play. Can you tell me more about that? Because I don't know if we do.
Sure. So,
What is war play?
playing at war, playing at combat. I think
Okay.
people have a distinction here in the UK where it's broadly. I mean, we've done a whole podcast about this, but
Yes.
I'll try and summarize it. So, like, people are sort of okay with swords and shields and bows and arrows.
Okay.
Nobody really has an issue with that.
Okay.
People might have an issue with the aggression that maybe comes with it.
Okay.
People have a strong emotional response to bang, bang, pow, pow. I'm in the army. Shoot you. You're
Okay.
dead.
Yeah. And what about you?
Well, so my own journey on it was like, I was raised in a like no gun household, but not even like here. That doesn't mean no gun. Like, nobody has guns here, right? We just don't have guns. But what that meant was, like, I was not allowed to play that I had a gun. I was not allowed toy guns. I was not allowed to pretend something was a gun. You know, there was zero gunplay in my childhood. So that influences where you get to them when you talk about this. And I think, again, it's in Heather Schumacher's Okay Not to Share. So I'm speaking on behalf of people. I'm trying to get to the other side of this. So the worry is, for people that don't want to see war play, is that you're romanticizing something that is harmful. Yeah?
I think that's
let's say devil advocate.
Yeah.
Right? So there's somebody saying, I don't like that because war is scary. They shouldn't pretend to be war. It will make them grow up and want to be in the army. It'll make them grow up and be aggressive people. Okay, so you go, okay, right, I understand all of that. None of that is invalid. Makes complete sense. Like you say, how does this make you feel when you see it? And that it's about how it makes us feel when we see it. We are adults. We have all the context in the world. We watch the news. When we see children playing war, we see actual war. When they are playing war, they are playing, first and foremost, and secondly, they're probably working something through that they've seen, that they've heard. We've had children here reenact, I'm going to be Russia and you be Ukraine.
Yeah, we've had America and Mexico in a war.
So if you have stuff that's going on that you don't understand internally, right? You might understand it in terms of you could tell the story. But if children don't get a chance to play stuff through, they don't understand embodying that thing. If you want something to develop empathy, let them play at being the other side of the wall and not being let in. Let them play at what does it feel like to be powerful and to not let someone in, and to see how that feels. Because with all the empathy and with all the understanding of the world, you and I know that you can't say to children like, you should feel bad about this, and they'll feel bad about it. When they play it, they embody it. It's in everything. In some ways, allowing war play is probably promoting more empathy, because you're getting the incredibly safe, right? We're not playing with real guns. No one's actually going to die. No one's actually going to get shot. But you do get to see the emotional impact of watching someone die, in air quotes. You do get to see what it feels like to be powerful. You do get to see what it feels like when nobody wants to play because you've been too aggressive. All of that is safe in play. Nobody's getting physically hurt. Emotionally, you've got to watch it, right? You've got to see, where is this in the line, right? But if my daughter walks around the house and meowing on all fours, I don't worry she's going to grow up and be a cat.
Are you sure?
Well, slightly, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we don't worry that children...
Of course. I think that's something that we've seen, and one of the reasons why I've pulled back from it. So one thing is, if I do see children engaging in play that they are clearly working something through, and there are power imbalances happening in the play, and there might be someone experiencing some form of emotional harm, unless I stay really present and communicative with them. And in those scenarios, I'll ask questions. I'll ask questions that might prompt a little bit of thought, and I'll feel like this play is staying a bit safer emotionally because I'm hanging out and I'm playing alongside.
Sure.
When we saw play happening where there was Mexico and the United States and a wall was being built,
Mm-hmm.
the children that were being aggressive and exclusionary
Mm-hmm.
were children that already carried more power.
Mm-hmm.
And the children that were being, you are Mexico, you are on the other side of the wall, were children that already experienced being excluded and were already trying to fit in and belong.
Mm-hmm.
So someone in the friend group with a bit more power decided who was who, and the game emerged organically.
Mm-hmm.
It offered us a lot of opportunity. This was a few years ago. It offered us a lot of opportunity for conversation about what they had learned and what they might have felt, and kindness. And again, it asked us to be very present.
Mm-hmm.
But it did feel like it had the potential for harm. And I wouldn't be supportive of that playing out frequently or without an adult being there and holding a safe and supportive space.
So, just to pull out things I've heard. And you can tell me I'm hearing the wrong thing,
Yeah,
by all
please.
means. So, there was a group that had power, and there was a group that didn't have power. Yeah, in this
It was
play?
a group of friends, and as you know, in some groups of friends, there's a few like
Sure, there's a
children who
social
are tagging along, and yeah.
Okay, cool. So I guess one thing I'd be looking at would be, and in some ways it's probably more useful not to know what you did next, because if I was in that scenario, what I'd be looking at and trying to unpick and reflecting on all this stuff is going, okay, so they've got the power, and these people have not got power. They've got power in the game because they can decide who's who. Do you know what I mean? Like externally from the meta gaming of it, they had the power to decide you're on this team and you're on this team.
Someone did.
Someone did, okay.
But not everyone did.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so these people who are already in a low status position were then put in a low status position in the game. And I guess I would be looking at that, and like you say, I probably would have done the same thing as standing nearby, checking everyone was okay. I think what I would be then long term looking at is like, if someone is low power, low status, is it helpful for me to just come in as a higher status person and trump the high status? Or does that low power group need help with advocacy and everything else? Because in some ways, and this is broadly warplay and everything.
Yeah, wonderful.
So
Mm-hmm.
they needed autonomy. So loads of the work that we do here is about, almost every morning with our homemade group, we practice, stop, I don't like it. Mm-hmm. I'm in control of my play. Or we talk about stuff like, if someone says they don't want to play, that doesn't mean they hate you. It means they don't want to play that right now. They might want to play with you later. Giving people autonomy, giving people self-worth, and autonomy over their body and their play and the ability to say, I do or don't want to play that thing at any point. What I have done in the past is done that teacher thing of like, I'll solve this. I'm the highest status. Therefore I shall come in and I shall address the power balance. Fuck all of I address the power balance. What I've done is, there was low status, high status, and I've gone, I'm even higher status. Mm-hmm. I've reinforced the hierarchy. Mm-hmm. And yes, I'm standing on this side of the line, but actually all I've said is, well, some people have more power than others. Mm-hmm. So much of the work that we try to do is about trying to get people to self-advocate, mm-hmm. and people to be able to go, I don't like this play, stop.
So you might join in alongside the friends that are role-playing being excluded and join into that play. No, you wouldn't.
I wouldn't join.
Oh, you wouldn't?
Because then I've still joined in. Because then I've still stepped in, and like we said, like it or not, I have a hierarchy. I'm 6 foot tall,
Right.
and I'm twice the size of all these children. Even
Right.
if I step in and play and say I'm on this side of the wall, I'm still 6 foot tall, and I'm still bigger than all these other children, and I'm still in charge, and I'm still all these other things.
So in supporting their advocacy, how would you do that?
I would be going, hang on, this person doesn't look happy. John, are you happy? And then John's,
Is this feeling good for you?
is this feeling good for you? John,
Yeah.
I've noted, and I'd be, also what I'm doing is pole bridging
Yes.
to this powerful group
Yes.
what I'm seeing on their face.
John,
So I'm going,
how-
I've noticed John's, his face isn't happy. Can you, and I'd be picking someone on this side. Can you see John's face isn't happy? Yeah. John, what's going on? You're not feeling happy. Okay. Can you tell them what it is you don't like about the game? Not me. I don't want it to be me. I don't want to be a mediator. I want to
Yes.
be a facilitator.
Yeah.
And people step into the wrong role sometimes.
Yeah.
They mediate when they should be facilitating.
Yeah.
My goal is for them to talk to each other. If I can stay out of it, I should. No?
Yeah, no, I think this, like what you're speaking about is a beautiful way of not doing a top heavy approach to a tricky kind of play.
Yeah. And it's really hard. And this is where you bring in again, if you've got parents' eyes on you, if you've got all this other stuff on you, there's an urge to like fix it quickly. And the way to fix it quickly is to step in and to like, I can solve this. I don't like this. This person's sad, so let's not do that.
And the learning just isn't as rich.
We've all done that, right? And we've all, and like every single one of us has done that. Like, it just happens, and it happens. And sometimes, like, the only thing you can do is to reflect on it afterwards and go, okay, if I see it come up next time, because you might not see it come up next time. Quite often it comes up with like, there's a really good book called Why Weren't We Taught This at School? It talks about fingerprint needs and how we just go in with some stuff. So like someone might have a fingerprint need about fairness because something in their life means that fairness is super important. So when something unfair like that play happens, they've solved it, and then they go, fuck, I didn't need to do that thing.
I did it again.
I did it again. And all we can do is try and like reflect on it and go, okay, next time. Okay, next time. Okay, next time. And like, that's where we all need to be doing this with teams so that you can because Wem and I will quite often go, this is really challenging for me. Could you go watch that bit of play?
We call that tapping out.
Sure. It's that thing, isn't it? Of just like, no, I as a person can't hold this right now.
Totally.
So
Can you tap in?
Yeah. And that's okay. And that person, quite often that's good because that person hasn't seen all of the build up.
Yeah.
And if you've been in a play cycle, if you've been with a group, as you've watched things go boom, 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 you might have a different view of what is actually happening. Someone else comes in and goes, well, they've just put some sticks on the floor and they're on that side and they're on that side. I don't know what you're worried about. It's that kind of stuff.
It is important to be aware of the emotional responses you're feeling in your body.
Definitely.
And I find, we talk about this a bit, and like your alarm went off to tell you to eat food. We talk about this a bit in our team, that for us to be on our toes, responsive, and the better version of ourselves as educators, we have to be comfortable with what we are wearing. We have to be like, not like, oh my gosh, my toes are so cold, my fingers are so cold. That's going to be, that edge of discomfort is going to make me more reactive, not responsive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
we do.
looking after ourselves, ensuring that we are not hungry, are not thirsty, are not cold, can sometimes mean that we can hold a bigger amount of emotional space
Yeah, definitely.
for what's happening around us.
Yeah. Do you have you come across the idea of cups? That we all have
Yes.
these cups, and that if they're being filled, and you need to find ways to drain the cups, and so they don't fill over. And like, yeah, it's that thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'm just conscious of the time. We could happily chat about things
It's been great.
all day. But so if people are in your part of the world, where can they find, or not in your part of the world, where can they find out more about your stuff and what you're up to?
Well, if you want to look us up online, we're at outtoplay.ca, and we welcome visitors and tours, as Lewis did for me today, which has been wonderful. And We also welcome volunteers to join us and observe. We often have practicum students with us, and I love this experience of discussing how we do things and what we do the same and what we do differently. I think it's the richest learning for me. So absolutely welcome that if anyone would like to look us up and visit.
Amazing. Oh, thank you very much.